Yo guys, what is good? As here once again with another Exos series video. And in today's video we're actually going to take on secret dungeons, special dungeons, however you want to call them, for the light and dark elements. Let's get into it. Alrighty, so first of all, sorry I mislabeled the video because for whatever reason in my head I got confused and I thought yesterday or the day before was light and dark day. It's actually today. The Saturday and Sunday are free. It just happens that a lot of the light and dark units are used. That's why you could see me using Astarte and Degas and all the crazy units that you have seen in the video. So apologies for that. Without further ado, let's get into the actual heroes that we're going to use for the light and dark day. Now, the light and the dark day is kind of annoying, not so much difficult, but really annoying. Mana gain is such an important thing. It doesn't matter how good the unit's kit is if they cannot get the mana. For example, FC Adams is a great hero. Don't get me wrong, I love him. Or for me it's Adams, but FC Adams would be great too. So Adams is a great hero, but because of how weak his mana gain is, there's so many stronger heroes in other situations. Like, where would I use him? Probably only when I'm forced to use him, or if I had the FC version in PvP. Then the same goes for like these Frisia, Hawkeye, all these healers, and then this sort of like everything that is basically after Wilkes is kind of bad. And yeah, like if Wilkes was leveled up and was before Buck, only those 8 heroes, like I'm including actually this guy, would be utterly useless. Oh, sorry, Liffy too. Liffy is still great. So because of that, this day is incredibly frustrating and takes a lot of time. It's not necessarily difficult. So let's go over the units that I have been playing with. We have Ferris. You know, I play with her a lot and I love her because of her overall kits. It's just so useful for any scenarios. Actually, she is even part of my tag team because she will stun the entire back row for me. And most of the time in tag team, I'm not facing Dragonblood, so there she becomes actually pretty useful. So this is her gear and her stats you can see here. If you build her up, try to get as much block obviously as possible. She has pretty high crit rate but very low attack, so you won't be getting much damage out of her because her multipliers are just really weak. Other than that, there's not much to say about her. Her kit is really good. I wish this was thrust, but share health, it can definitely help you out. And if you're earlier game, the Dragonite Blessing is an added bonus. So then Sybil. Sybil, sometimes I trash her, sometimes I praise her. It's a mixed bag because she is one of the weakest healers in the game. And if it wasn't for her overall utility, I would completely dismiss her. But especially on light and dark day, you don't have a lot of light AoEs, you don't have a lot of light heal, you're stuck with her, and she is a reviver as well. So here are her stats. She is slow, so she will most of the time go last. And her overall stats are also very weak. Like her low multipliers paired with this low attack make it so that she's really only used for basically breaking for free, and her revive. It's really great that she has a first aid passive, because otherwise you would die even quicker. But overall, don't expect much healing. It's 3% of overall maximum health, which is like 150. Like, that's nothing. So don't expect much of this. Next up we have Nurmish. Nurmish is actually one of the better heroes. I would place him above Adams, and fight me about it, I don't mind. And it's simply because he has the higher multipliers, a reset ability, and final hit. So he does a lot more in the narrow space that you're using him. Counter can be great, but a lot of the time it can actually hurt you. And I will get into that a little bit later too. I haven't upgraded his gear since the last time you saw him, so he is actually fairly weak in comparison to what I could put on him. So I would actually put all these at 50 and get him closer to like 1800-ish attack, and he would do even more. So final hit, pretty good. This, it doesn't hit too hard, but it's only 2 mana and it resets, so you can chain this into the magic arrow shots if you're getting the reset and you're hitting a dark unit. So you have to play a little bit around with that. You will see that actually later in the video. Then we're using Jeweled. I prefer him over Kasoke. Like, they're basically the same. I actually don't have a Kasoke right now, so I cannot show you, but they're the same. They have the same abilities. This is just differently named. One of them is magic damage, one of them is physical damage, and the only reason I prefer him is because I have more physical gear lying around than magical gear. That's the only reason why I built this guy up, and because I pulled more than one of him, in case you're wondering. He has counter, and this Air Splint Slash with 350% damage is pretty good. It's only 3 mana, so that's nice. And he has the ability to grant status effect immunity. It's super expensive, so the only reason you use it is to skip a turn when you want your other units to either get more mana or healing out. His overall stats are fairly good. As you can see, the gear is weaker than Nurmish, just to compare. So he has another like 136, and this guy I think only 80 or something, 100. So another 36 damage. So they are fairly comparable if you see that. And this guy has a lot more defense than Nurmish. He's actually not that bad, and I used him quite often. So in case you're wondering, oh, should I invest in some of these units? Jeweled might actually be, or Jeweled I think, might actually be one that you should consider. Next up we have my Iris. As you can see, I don't equip her Fate Core for these episodes just because it's a no Fate Core series. I don't think it matters much because everybody got her, but for fairness sake I do that. So this is her gear, super weak gear. Her stats, she doesn't deal too much damage, but this ability is actually pretty insane. So I did a review on her and mentioned that the target gains 1 mana. In the beginning I was under the assumption, because you need to target these abilities on some unit, you have seen this with like other barriers or share health or something, you need to target a unit. So this is a little bit misleading. It actually grants the 1 mana to everybody, which makes it really great. And the barrier of 11% of her max HP, so I have her at 5000, is another 500, which is pretty good. So really nice. And she is a cleanser, so if there's debuff effects or damage over time, then you get a little bit of mana as well, which is great because Light is suffering from mana gain. Next up we have Frisia. You have to use her. Yeah, this is her gear. These are her stats. Like, she's super weak on attack, so her stats not too good. This Captain's Will is okay for some cheesy things where you protect your allies and hope that the back row gets attacked, and then the reflect will break some things. You might see me doing that a couple of times as well. This one is pretty good. It deals decent damage. You use it for the sun, 4 mana, pretty high, but she has thrust, which is an additional utility. Buck, on the other hand, he doesn't have gear because I don't have floating gear currently around, because I gave it all to Yuld. But I like this guy. So he also has thrust. He has this 1 mana 200% damage, which whatever. But he has a 3 mana 5-turn petrify. So in my opinion, this little rat bumps Frisia out of the waters. And yeah, that's why you can see me having invested into him over her. I actually used him quite a bit. I used Sir Nando. Mana utilization is a great passive. The Call of Light, like increasing crit, is good. But most of the time it's also used for skipping a turn because you need to hit the enemies in terms of breaking. So a lot of times this is only used when either everybody is broken or when you want to skip a turn. And then this has a burst on 4 mana, so the 204% turns into something like, at 5 mana, to something like 220% ish, maybe. So yeah, it's okay. Not good, not bad. His stats, he's a regular attacker. His crit could be higher, but for an attack unit, it's pretty good. Usually you only see higher critical hit with chaos type monsters or heroes. His speed is not that bad for a magician. And yeah, this is his gear. Don't have a floating piece around for him. Liffy, I'm short on gear, as you can see. These are her stats. She's actually a pretty great unit. So she has this focus shot, which helps you get a little bit rid of the really annoying block and dodges that you might encounter for the next hit that your unit might do. So if there is a unit following her right after, that will benefit from this. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. And speed-wise, she is on 116, so 110 speed. So she is fairly fast, which makes it great because this ability is really good for breaking. If she had more damage, this is roughly 280, maybe 300% multiplier. It would be better, but I don't have enough damage on her to make it worth. Overall, a great unit. Legger, the second healer in the light faction. There is one more. It's April. I, for whatever reason, fed her. I don't have her in my account, but I pulled her 100%. The light healers are all pretty underwhelming. She revives as well. She gives 13% of her maximum HP, which is better, and it's burst, so it can heal for more. And then Realm of Punishment, 27% on a 5 mana. Pretty weak, and you will barely get to this 5 mana just because of how mana gain for light units work. Stat wise, yeah, whatever. She's really slow. She's even slower than Sybil. Alright, Hawkeye I didn't use today. I used Wilkes. Wilkes you see me using in another video. She doesn't have gear. She is 4-star because she doesn't need the additional mana gain. She can stay at what she is. Just put a little bit gear on her to make her a little bit more tanky. She has this mana absorb. So if there's a buff, she will take that off, which is great. She increases all allies' attack. Attack is, in my opinion, better than crit rate because most of the heals scale also of attack, while they don't scale too much of crit rate. Because if you have a unit that has a very low crit rate, so let's say this is 90, so that's not too bad. She has 90 as well, so 90 is okay, but there are some units with like 20, like him. It doesn't matter too much if you bump the crit rate just a little bit. It would be better if you increase his attack so he does more damage. So I like this more overall. And this is her money maker. It doesn't deal a lot of damage. It's purely used for breaking and it's insanely good at that. And last up we have 2 more required units. And it's Wagner. He has insane defense. He's one of the highest defense units in the game once he's at 5-star. He actually gets very close to Mahar and Ulum, so really high defense. However, his low attack and his kit doesn't really make him good. He has provoke, it's only for 4 turns. He's very slow, like 27. So you provoke something, your units go and the provoke is gone. It doesn't do much. He has this AoE provoke. Most of the time that kills him. Like, I don't know, I cannot make this guy work. You have this increased defense. It's on a 3 mana, which is pretty high. Once he gets attacked, you get this off quite a bit. Most of the time he's just dead. So in order to use him effectively, you would need to put him up to 5-star and put some decent gear on him. Then he might be good, but on 4-star he's just not good enough. And then you have Eclipse that you need to use. I didn't do anything with this guy because he's just fodder. He's really weak. Increases dodge, 175 damage. The decreased defense is great. I don't like him too much. I wouldn't invest into him. Like, if this lands, it's good. If it doesn't, whatever. His overall defense is also very weak, so let's say he has 1000 and the maximum he could decrease it would be 260%. And 1000 is actually a stretch, so you need to get him to 5-star. 1500 would be the max that you can get on him, so you would get like 300 defense minus, which in the overall grand scheme doesn't matter too much. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's get into some gameplay. Okay, so here we have the experience dungeon, and we're running this on enhanced speed just because everything takes so long during that day. I think this is 4 minutes, and I might even bump this up more. So if you really want to see the gameplay, you need to slow it down. So I will go over it a little bit. Alright, there was Minea that we needed to use as well. In short, I think she's trash. She has no gear on it, and you should not invest into her. Like, you can clear this dungeon without too much issues. if you used the same heroes as me. And here you can see me using Jeweled and Nurmish as my damaging team, and then Iris and Sybil as my breakers and mana providers. I want as much mana as possible and keep my units somewhat alive. So Minea, you could see she dies, and now I need to revive her in order to keep the mana flow going for the light units, but I decided to let her die so my Nurmish can get more mana, and once that is done, then you can see me reviving her. It's a lot about, like, Light and Dark is a lot about playing around with when do you revive a unit, when is it better to keep it dead. It really depends on all the units that you have, and yeah, I try to go over why I don't revive or why I revive in a certain case. Obviously, I'm not perfect. I might make a mistake here and there, and if I do so, I will try to say, like, oh yeah, that was stupid, like, don't do that. Here I tried to nuke the middle guy down because he's annoying with the heals, but I wasn't able to, and now yeah, my Minea died again, so it's all about me basically reviving her back, so I have the mana on Iris. So I wanted to try to keep her alive in order to get the one more bonus on Iris, in order for her to actually be able to give me a shield and thus create a chain reaction. It didn't work out, so yeah, it was worth a try. And yeah, now this boss stage just takes ages, like around 3 minutes in, and this currently runs at double the speed, and we will just nuke it up a little bit to I would say 3 times the speed, just so it goes way quicker. Here you see me here reviving again, and this is all for the mana gain for light, to have the 1 permanent mana, because I can do more with that than I can do with just Nurmish getting a mana due to having Iris. And yeah, from here on out, it's just nuking the boss as much as I possibly can. And yeah, that's basically it. That's the whole dungeon. Not too difficult. As mentioned before, it's just a little bit annoying because it takes so long. Definitely invest into some better units. If you have somebody like Baelish, he's actually pretty good in all of those dungeons because he deals corroding damage. Yeah, so let's get into the next one. Okay, so here we have Spirit Sanctum, and we will run this at 2 times speed for the beginning. This one is fairly even. Oh, we used Metron here. I forgot to show his gear. He has 2 or 3 pieces on him. Overall, it takes too long to get to his 5 mana like dot damage over time. He could be good, but it's very difficult. In this one, I'm using Kale as a healer. Kale is a 3-star. I think I have showed him off. If not, he's currently at 4-star 60. Because I don't need the additional mana gain. If units are dead, then he cannot revive him, so it doesn't matter. His heal is... it's all single target heals, so even getting him to 5-star will not benefit you too much. Yeah, he's just there because I wanted to try some fancy things out. And I was confident that with, at least with Wilkes and Fernando, we have enough damage to burst them down. And as long as I keep my fears alive, we should be good. So here, I was very hesitant, like, oh, should I use the damage over time just to get more damage out and clear this out quicker? But then I decided against it just because I probably will not get it back again, while I could have just nuked with Fernando in this case. And here it's all about getting some mana, trying to hit this guy a little bit to get some life back as well for my Kale. And yeah, now that we're at the boss stage, it's a typical Ferris combination where we submit the back row by stunning them, and we're doing this constantly. And yeah, then with Fernando we try to stun them. We constantly apply the AoE corroding damage with Wilkes in order to get the mana gain for Fernando, so Fernando has much easier times to nuke, because it's the best way to get mana in these dungeons. Just have an AoE person and then break the dark stones and just constantly use your AoE to clear things out. It speeds it up a little bit. And yeah, now that we're at the boss, I actually set it on auto because I couldn't bear it for once, and I played a lot of these dungeons. It actually took me quite a bit to experiment with those heroes, so this is not the first iteration you see. So far, only experience was the first one was just a solid go, and this one I played around with some other units and it didn't work out. Okay, Ancient Goldmine. This one is the roughest of them all. It took me 17 minutes to complete, and I played around so much with units. I put Liffy in there, Wilkes, Together, Nurmish, Adams. I tried it with different light units. You're actually forced to use Wagni, Ferris, or Hawkeye, and Frisia. Here you see I'm taking Sybil because I need the revive. I couldn't manage it without any heals, without any revives. It just wasn't possible for me. And I needed another light breaker in this case. Dark, Wilkes can deal with this each day, every day. No problem. She is the only dark unit you need in here. The rest can be all light units. I think there's not a single replacement. Just because with Wilkes you can do it from turn 1 onwards, and you don't rely on any mana gain. As you can see, the dark units never really move. I think they moved once or twice in total until I killed them, but killing them takes a long time. If there was any good reason to make Wilkes a 5-star, it would be to improve her damage. Just to make this a little bit more like consistent and quicker. Good units to take into this would be I would say Baelish from the Fadeds. That's about it. Baelish from the Fadeds. And I wouldn't even know who to replace here, because you need Sybil, you need Wilkes, and the rest of the team is fixed. So yeah, this one is a really tough one. And mostly because you're lacking damage. That is the only reason. Obviously, if you have Dragonblood units, this whole thing becomes really, really simple. I would advise you, if you have Ramji, just put him in the front line. Don't put Sybil in the front line, put Sybil in the back line. You will automatically have a light and a dark break for everything. Actually, with Dragon Blood you might not need Sybil. With Dragon Blood you put in Wilkus, you put in Ramji in the front line, and then have the rest of your team there. If you would go with Dragon Blood Baelish, you would need to move 2 of your light units into the back so you can break with the Dragon Blood ability. You still want to have Wilkus in there, so you would bring 2 light units into the back, preferably Fierce, because you want to protect her more, and then probably let Wagni in the front, and then you have a setup like this. For stones, I would make sure that my Dragon Blood units have a nature stone so that you can constantly refresh the shield and break the units on reflect as well. And other than that, yeah, you're pretty much stuck with a very slow fight. Here, once you are at the boss, you can see it's super easy. Like, this entire dungeon was super easy. You're just lacking in damage. Like, you're never in danger of actually dying because none of the units moves. Like, the boss sometimes moves, but you don't care. Even if he breaks somebody, you really don't care, because with Wilkus, you constantly break him. You can see Wilkus actually got broken from the reflect damage, and it doesn't matter. You have your heals, you have your revive, and yeah, it's basically just getting everything in control. With Fierce, you constantly stun the side minions, and then once Wilkus gets her turn, she will break them. And this is one of the few situations where it doesn't really matter who you attack with first, because it will get broken either way because of the trust ability, unless you can stun the boss. Okay, we need to speed this up quite a bit, because this is a 7-minute fight, and I actually put this on 4 times speed. Just so you can see that nothing in this is any special. You will constantly see me rotating between... I actually use... Freesia, because she has a green stone, to attack the boss, so she gets always broken, and once she gets on the last break and takes the damage, she will retaliate the boss. I found this out a little bit later. I didn't know that she would retaliate on the last hit, so that is pretty cool, because it's an additional stun and you can do this indefinitely. So here you will actually only see the boss move to basically get hit by Freesia. And once that happens, then he is broken too, or he is stunned, and I can freely apply. So every time you see him move in this video, it's just because he attacks Freesia back. And that's about it. There's nothing special to this. One of the easier ancient gold mines. Once you understand how to navigate through it, and trust me, most of you will try it with pure damage. This is not the place for damage, in my opinion. Okay, so here we get to actually some pretty interesting ones. For light and dark, so for Lunar and Solar Trade Route, I picked the exact same teams. So I picked 4 of the same team members, because I think you're required to have Nurmish in one or Buck in one. I don't exactly remember. And this guy that I was talking about, Eclipse, that is kind of meh. But you only need 4 units to pass this, so you can pretty much ignore Eclipse. And all you do is constantly CC the backline. So in Lunar, the backline on the first stage is actually dark, but you don't care, because Fierce doesn't care for the stun. So you constantly stun them and then you break them over time. And you will see when we go through Lunar that it's the exact same concept, and you just use Nurmish for your heavy duty damage dealing. You could use Atoms here, but in my opinion Nurmish is better because he just speeds things up with his final hit, as you can see here. It's so much quicker with him. The final hit also provides him with extra mana, which makes it stronger because you actually don't want the enemy to counter, because counters mean death here. Yeah, so something that is interesting about light and dark. So when you break light stones off the enemy, every damage you deal, like 30% you actually heal. So you see me quite often trying to use my heavy damage dealing abilities on a light unit just in order to heal up. So here you can see I break a unit and then I attack that. I just do auto attacks to not get rid of them too quickly, and especially the light units, and then you see me with Buck attacking, and he's the only one who's attacking the light units because I want to keep them alive as long as possible because of how weak Sybil's heal is, and I need my units to be as healthy as possible in the first round. You see me here using Petrify and all that just in order to negate a lot of the damage. Here again I break and now it's healing time. Okay, so the boss stages, as with all of them, the boss has this kind of one-shotty mechanic. This one less than the others that are on 700% because 300% is lower, but he will still hit very hard. So here I want to get my mana up with my Buck as quickly as possible, so I just attack into the boss with Nurmish and Yule. So I want my my Buck and my God, what's her name? Oh yeah, this was risky. So here I thought, oh god, this is an empty one. I stunned, I revived, and from here on out I tried to CC all the other units and try to not hit that boss guy, and I hit him actually with my Sybil because I thought, oh, maybe she can block it, but she didn't, so she died. And from here on out, once the status immunity effect was worn off, I healed up with my Nurmish, and now I constantly CC him. This boss doesn't move a single time from here on out, and this is actually the strategy that I did with both. You can see that the matches are almost identical with exactly the same 3 members surviving, and I'm doing the same thing, constantly CCing the boss. And actually I could have done this just with Buck and Nurmish, because as you can see, like Ferris doesn't really deal any damage, or she doesn't override any stuns or something. And yeah, that brings us already to Lunar Trade. As mentioned, it's the same concept. It's a little bit more difficult because you cannot follow your typical stun from Ferris into AoE from Sybil to break the entire back row. So you need to be a little bit more careful with who you hit and who you get hit by. So one thing about the counters, how they work. So let's say you have a counter. You attack, they counter, you counter. And the same is for them. So if you don't have a thrust ability, it goes they attack, you counter, they counter back, and this could kill your units. For this simple reason, I don't bring counters here, just thrusters. Yult is required. If he wasn't, I wouldn't have brought him here, but maybe... actually, I would have still brought him here because he's a good damage dealer. As you can see in some of the fights here, he deals some pretty decent chunky damage, especially with his third ability, nuking stuff down. Pretty solid. Here I was pretty much like, oh, my fears got killed, which sucks. So now all I want to do is generate mana with my Sybil in order to regenerate, to give Fears a turn back, or bring her back to life, revive her. I cannot speak today, sorry, long day. And with Fears, I will constantly try to CC the enemy to not get her killed again. And I fail. So same play again, I heal, I only use auto attacks, and here you see me skip a turn. With Buck, I attack, and unfortunately it wasn't enough for me to bring Fears back. So I want to nuke an enemy as quickly as possible, so my Sybil dies under no circumstances. I stun the dark guy, although he was broken. I just wanted to like get a little bit more damage out, but Buck doesn't really deal so much. Oh, I used Trust, so I thought I used the stun. I didn't. Okay, I was smart. I thought I did a slight mistake there to get more damage out, but I didn't. And yeah, now it's all about controlling, and I use my heavy CC ability on the light unit just to heal Fears a little bit more up. Not another turn skip. I thought I skipped a turn here in order to gain some more health, but I think it wasn't like enough. I realized, oh, I cannot rotate another one, so it's fine. Here, Yule died immediately. Nothing I could do about that. It's just the boss's mechanic. But I can stun the boss right from the get-go, stun the side minions, and then use my small healing capabilities to keep things alive. I didn't use the stun here because I break the middle guy, and then with Sybil I tried to get mana and she died. From here on out, stun the side minions, stun the middle guy, nuke as much as I can. So another term of, yeah, CC, and I try to nuke the boss as hard as I can. Here I stun one of the side minions, I attack the boss because I thought I could get a final hit that would kill him, but I got it here, so I reset. I use my ability to break in order to generate the mana that I needed. I stun again, and now cleanup duty, bye bye. Could I have played this better? Definitely yes. I tried my best to play it in a positive way. I did some small mistakes and got a little bit unlucky, but I think how I played this and the last one is the way to go. Like constantly bringing the CC to the middle guy and keeping him under control while Fierce deals with the side minions. And with that, we are at the last dungeon for today. We're actually only one away from the final episode, which will be the Fire Day. And so for this last one, I thought, okay, bring everything that usually doesn't get a lot of playtime. So instead of Sybil would be better here. I brought Legger, I brought Buck, I brought Liffy, and Yult. I think Iris and Yult might be required here. I'm not 100% certain on that. I will link the sheet in the description so you can see who the units are that are required here. Blessing Dungeon is never really a big challenge. This is something where you can experiment, where you can go in with weaker units. And here I just wanted to have some fun with the last units that I had and wanted to play around a little bit with Legger. She has her place, especially when there's a lot of AoE going on, like a lot of weak hits, and she can constantly get her healed up because she heals more. In probably 7 out of 10 scenarios, Sybil is the way to go. In any scenario where you have to use Ferris, Sybil is the way to go because those two would just pair so phenomenally well. Their speeds are like 53 and 37. So if you get them close to each other, Sybil, like if you can get her attack speed higher to maybe 44, if you don't get an interruption, you will always make sure to, if the back row has light units, to completely take them out of the game, which is amazing. But yeah, here I wanted to go for something else. I wanted to use Liffy as my breaker. In an optimal case, I would have used Nurmish again. I would have used Sybil instead of Legger. I don't know if Yult is required. If he is required, then obviously I have him, and instead of Buck, I would have used Wilkes. If Buck is required, I would have kept Yult in, because he's pretty good. And Iris is 100% required here. That was it for the light and dark dungeons. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was a little bit rougher one, because it takes so long and a lot of experimenting with different units, and I didn't want to put more gear into them. This whole series has cost me tons of resources to build all these units up in order to provide you with a scenario where you don't have to build them up. With that all said, I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, consider subscribing. It helps me out a lot. Leave a like, leave a comment, tell me your experiences. As always, it was a pleasure to have you here, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, enjoy the grind.